Well, hi everyone. We're here in New York today for a very special YouTube interview with President Bill Clinton. My name is Steve Grove, and for the past week or so, people have been submitting and voting on their favorite questions on YouTube for the President. President Clinton, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Steve. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to get started. I should say we're doing this on the eve of your Clinton Global Initiative annual meeting, where every year you bring together CEOs, nonprofits, philanthropists, all to tackle some of the world's most pressing challenges. And a lot of the questioners that submitted questions today had questions about those challenges, and then some current event questions as well. So let's get started.
Sure.
Our first question is from Romaine, who is from Haiti.
First of all, my name is Romaine Vernet. I'm from Léogâne, Haiti. Well, Haiti has a plethora of issues and problems. As you also know, it has great potential. Trash, sanitation, health, environmental, lack of jobs, and lack of energy production are among the nuisances that plague the island and its people. How can small businesses with a base abroad get funding to grow in Haiti? Thank you for your time and have a great meeting.
Thank you, Romaine. Well, first of all, he's right. There are a lot of challenges, and I'm the co-chair of this international commission to rebuild Haiti. Half the members are Haitian, half the members are foreign donors and international organizations. And it's working very well. But the government money that will be going to Haiti will be used mostly for rubble removal, housing, road building, these big infrastructure projects. He's hit on a very important problem, which is that there's really not a small business loan facility in Haiti. And when small businesses try to borrow money from existing banks, they face astronomical interest rates, 40, 50%. So I have been doing quite a bit of work on this, and two people who work with me around the world, Carlos Slim from Mexico and Frank Juster from Canada, have set up a $20 million facility to make loans to small and medium-sized businesses right now. And I'm going to try to get more money put into this fund as more loan applications come in. I think it's really important that the Haitian diaspora participate in this. And the other thing you should know, Romaine, is that I was pushing long before the earthquake, when I was working there for the United Nations, for dual citizenship for members of the diaspora. And under
they aren't allowed to have dual citizenship.
They can't now, but under the Haitian Constitution, 2 successive parliaments have to vote for it. This parliament, the one that's going out of existence because we've got elections coming up, has voted for it.
Okay.
So as soon as these elections are held, when the next parliament convenes, it's going to be my first priority with them to ask them to vote to grant dual citizenship, because there's an enormous interest among Haitians in the United States, in Canada, in France, and elsewhere in coming back home, investing, participating in the future.
Well, one of the key issues you focus on at CGI is empowerment of women and girls. And one of the top voted questions on that issue had to do specifically with child marriage. Let's listen.
My name is Kim. I'm with the International Center for Research on Women. And my question for President Clinton is this. One of the major developmental challenges facing girls is child marriage. Child brides face higher rates of violence, death in childbirth, and they are almost always pulled out of school. The U.S. Congress has legislation pending on child marriage, but despite broad bipartisan support, it isn't moving this year. With more than 60 million child brides in the world, why do you think this issue continues to slip under the radar of governments and large international development organizations?
I don't know, but it's been under the radar because I didn't know about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I'll get a copy of it and review it and see what it does.
It's
it's a terrible problem. Let me tell you what we do know. The longer girls stay in school, the longer they put off marriage and childbearing, and the more likely they are to be financially independent and really fully contributing to the life of their country. If it's coercive marriage, it depends on what the facts are, but it can be a violation of the international standards and the Convention on Children.
Right.
But I think it's very important. One of the things we're doing in Haiti, in Haiti, sometimes as many as half the children aren't in school. More than 2/3 of those who are in school are in private, mostly church schools, where they have to pay tuition. Sometimes families pay 40% or 50% of their income for tuition. Most of the children who aren't in school are girls. So one of the goals that we have seen fully embraced by the Haitian Education Ministry, that we want the Commission to embrace and fund, is their first completely free education system, either with tuition supplements to church schools or with new, better public schools with well-trained teachers. Haiti has a system called Restavec, which affects girls and boys, where in effect children are sold into indentured servitude. Some of them have even been found in the United States, I'm sad to say, for a long period of time. And many times it's the choice that was memorialized in the famous movie of the Nazi era in Germany, Sophie's Choice, where the soldier tells her, "Give me one child or I'll take both." It's a lot of these families are selling their children, not even for that much money, just so they have one fewer mouth to feed and they can send the other kids to school. I think if we ended Restavec in Haiti, it would end, if we had universal enrollment in schools, it would end 90% of that problem. But we still have to struggle everywhere against cultural assumptions that young girls should be treated as property, including being put up for marriage when they're 9 or 10 or 11 years old.
Right. Let's move from Haiti for a moment to Iran. And one of the top voted questions that came in had to do with the 3 American hikers who have been in prison there for over a year. And of course, just recently, Sarah Short, one of the 3 hikers, was released, but Josh Fatal and Shane Bauer are still there. This question comes from some friends of Josh.
Hello, President Clinton. My name is Dal Ryan. I'm Rachel Rothman.
And I'm Rosie Krensick. This is our bike shed, something Josh Fatal, who is one of the 3 hikers unjustly detained in Iran, built and named the Center for Appropriate Transportation. What do you think is the appropriate course of action for freeing these 3 of their inappropriate espionage charges and bringing them home?
You famously intervened, of course, in North Korea last year with the 2 journalists. What do you think about the situation in Iran?
Well, first of all, the young woman who was held has been released, and I think that's a good sign. The Iranians use them for publicity value. They know that these young people are not in any way involved in espionage. And I know that this is a question that my wife could more properly handle than me, but Hillary worked very hard on this issue. And they won't stop working just because she's been released. The 2, Josh and the other young man who were there, Shane, they're clearly innocent of any espionage. And I believe that if we just keep working at it and the United States continues to do everything that was done to get the young woman released, Sarah, I think that eventually they'll be released. We just have to keep working at it. It's unfortunately, they're political footballs.
Yeah.
There may come a time when the Iranians, if they decide they want to talk to us about all these other issues, will ask for some high-level representative of the government to go there and bring them home. But that's what I did in North Korea, something that's almost peculiar to their culture and to my relationship with North Korea. I would be a little surprised if they did it that way, but I think they will be released if we just stay on it, just be relentless, just never talk about anything with anybody, not only from Iran, but having any influence in Iran without bringing this up. I think eventually we'll get them out.
With President Ahmadinejad coming to the UN this week, it'll be interesting. This issue will be in the headlines, I think, a lot. We want to get to a global health question because this is also one of the issues that you focus on at CGI a bunch. The next question, it comes from a man named Chris who lives in Australia, and he has a very compelling personal story he wanted to share.
My name is Chris Bond. I'm a 24-year-old Australian from Canberra who has beaten the awful and much too popular disease, cancer. I was only 19 when I was rushed to hospital since falling to the floor with stomach pains. Little did I know that day that I had leukemia running through my blood. The doctors told me I needed an urgent operation to cut me open and to say goodbye to my family, as they only gave me a 50% chance to survive. I'm still here, but due to complications and infections, within a month, both my legs, my left hand, and my right fingers were amputated. Many people might find the thought of living after something like this too hard, but I'm just lucky to be alive.
Now, Chris's video was a little long, so we contacted him and said, what is your question? He said, what can be done to improve survival rates of young people with cancer?
Well, first of all, did this happen to him when he was in Australia or somewhere else?
It happened in Australia, I believe.
One of the first of all, first thing can be done is better early detection and better training of medical personnel throughout the country in how to handle various cancers. The childhood leukemia survival rate has gone through the roof in the last 30 years. It's one of the most rewarding and encouraging things that's happened in all the battles against cancer. We find that this sort of problem that he has still happens every single day in developing countries, in poorer countries. So one of the things that we did over the last year to change CGI is to have networks called action networks around subjects that a lot of our members were interested in, who wanted to stay active all year long, wanted to keep looking for answers, wanted to keep looking for partners. One of them is on girls and women's empowerment, and one is on cancer in developing countries. People don't think about it very much, but there's an enormous amount of cancer in poor countries. It's just that you have AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria, waterborne diseases slapping you in the face every day.
Yeah, I think 70% of all cancer cases are in developing countries.
Yes.
In the world, yeah.
So we know what we have to do. We have to make sure that the medical personnel that are there are trained, and where we can't cover a whole country, you've got to at least get some aggressive preliminary diagnosis capacity out there in the more rural areas, so you can move people to centers of care in a timely fashion so that you can avoid the worst consequences of the cancer.
Right. Well, the next question is a bit on the lighter side, but it gets at an issue that you were also familiar with during your presidency.
Hey there, Bill. Barack here with a question for you. With Republican obstructionism at a all-time high. No! It's getting next to impossible to get needed reform passed or vacant government positions filled.
No!
So my question for you is, do you think that the Senate should get rid of the filibuster?
No!
So people like to have fun on YouTube, but the question is legitimate. What do you think about the filibuster?
I think it has outlived its usefulness. You know, it's not in the Constitution. There is enough guarantee of minority representation by the fact that every state has 2 senators. So let's say Wyoming, or to take a Democratic state, Rhode Island, they have as many votes in the Senate as California, Texas, New York, Florida. And I think about how much money it cost us. We had 55 Democratic senators when I was trying to pass health care. The only reason we didn't pass it is we didn't have 60. If we'd had 60, we would have passed it. And I think the idea behind the filibuster is that complicated issues should be, and deeply controversial ones, should be debated for longer periods of time. One of the senators, I think maybe it was Senator Harkin, said that he favored a phase out of the filibuster. That, the first time you'd have to get 60 votes. And then if you had 2 or 3 more weeks of debate, it would drop to 58. If you had a couple more, it would drop to 56. But eventually, you'd get down to majority rule. Because what happens is you wind up, A, either never getting a vote, or B, making everybody a dictator. make every individual senator a dictator. You remember all that stuff that was put into the healthcare bill, and thanks to people like you highlighting it, most of the special pleading elements were taken back out. But there's a reason that happened. The filibuster rule. Everybody became a dictator.
Right.
Everybody could say, well, I'll vote for it if you do this or that or the other thing. And it's anti-democratic. So if they want to make sure we have plenty of time to debate it, and that there's every effort made to achieve a bipartisan solution, and that all the complexities are explored, maybe the best thing to do is to keep it for the first go-round, then let a couple of weeks expect and lower the number, and then lower the number and lower the number. But as it is, I think it's a very bad thing. It also puts enormous pressure on any president coming in wanting to change things, to try to get everything jammed into the budget, because the budget is the only thing not subject to the filibuster. And I remember Senator Byrd changed his position on this shortly before he died, but Senator Byrd supported health care reform when I was president, but strongly opposed it being put into the budget. And there was something in the Senate, still is, called the Byrd Rule, which says that non-germane areas cannot be dealt with in the budget, even if they cost money. So when he said it didn't belong in the budget, it wasn't going into the budget, especially since he had credibility, since he was going to vote for health care reform. Then when he changed his position in this legislative session, gave the president a little more leverage.
Right.
Even though, in fairness, the White House didn't want to look like it was pulling a fast one by putting it into the budget. So we wound up getting 60 votes. But it was, we would have never had a budget in 1993 if we had the filibuster rule. It only passed by one vote.
Yeah. I think a lot of people like this questioner on YouTube are frustrated a bit of the politics. And
Yeah, they should be.
Things, yeah.
They should be. And we should be prepared to live with it, people in my party, when we lose. The American people, when they vote, they ought to have a chance to have their majority manifest. And if the majority goes too far, then they'll vote against them the next time. But I think this filibuster has done a lot of damage. It's been used more probably in the last, was used more under me than ever before. And now it's been used at least as much against President Obama.
Let's move on to the developing world again. And this
Good question, Mr. President.
This question is from Ali in India, who writes, I'm a college student in India. I had an offer to read physics at Oxford, which I did not take up because I couldn't afford the fees. How can we, 1, make quality education affordable for all, and 2, improve quality of education in developing countries?
I think there are 2 answers to that. First of all, that's a problem here too. That is, America has a good policy on accepting students from overseas, but there's almost no financial aid available to students from other countries who come here through public sources. So I think there probably should be some sort of international facility. You wouldn't have to fund it a great deal of money, but that offers, has a few $1 million a year, which has been given out to deserving, bright young people from developing countries that don't come from wealthy families that are admitted to universities in developed countries. Because his story, I could have gotten several questions like that from students who've been accepted to American universities. The second thing is, I think we should really make an effort to create more adequate systems of higher education in developing countries. Maybe not every country has to have a big system of higher education, but there ought to be one an adequate system close by in every region. For example, maybe not every country in West Africa has to have one, but if you're going to concentrate, let's say, in the biggest in Nigeria, then there ought to be a system to provide funding for people from Benin and Sierra Leone and Senegal and other places. Senegal has a good system, they could go there. I think it's really important, and there's been, the president of Tanzania is trying to develop a university system there which will do this. in order to do it, amidst all the other competing demands, developed countries are going to have to help them. Because if you look at it, a good model would be what's going on in the Middle East. Qatar has 5 or 6, Georgetown, my alma mater, has a College of International Economics there. Texas A&M has a College of Agriculture and Engineering. The Cornell Biomedical Center, where I had a lot of my treatment in New York, they have, they're not, they and Columbia were associated, but Cornell while alone went and built a medical school. Then you've got a whole different model in the UAE where NYU is creating basically an NYU campus of comprehensive education in the UAE. What all those things have in common? They can pay to have it there. Saudi Arabia, under the sponsorship of the king, has just built the first coeducational university in the country. In a remote area, they created a whole community for a coeducational university. There are now more women than men in colleges in Saudi Arabia. But the developed countries can't afford that. Haiti, interestingly enough, because of the involvement of religious institutions, was one of the few really low-income countries that had a pretty decent network of higher education before the earthquake. So all we have to do there is to rebuild it and try to improve it as we rebuild. But you really got to have some way, I think, of doing it. There ought to be probably an international conference which sets up a strategy for all the developing countries within the big countries, and then regionally where there are a lot of small countries clumped together, to make sure that every child in the world who is gifted and motivated and works hard and has some chance to get a college education.
We want to end with a video question, Mr. President, and this is from Anthony in San Diego.
Hi, President Clinton. My name is Anthony. I wanted to know what your opinion is on the mosque at Ground Zero.
Well, first of all, I have a almost radical view on the First Amendment. I believe that people should be free to practice their faith. What the Muslim group wants to do is to build a community center near Ground Zero. And it's clearly a decision for the city of New York to make. The mayor supports it, and they've gotten the requisite approvals. So I think they ought to be able to do it. I think we should be sensitive to the fact that a lot of Americans are still really hurting over what happened at Ground Zero, and that we still have security threats in the world. And that the biggest threat, in my view, it remains the Al-Qaeda and their affiliates, they're Muslim, and they purport to speak in the name of religion. They purport to be doing their religious duty. I think much, maybe even most of the controversy of this decision could have been avoided, and perhaps still can be, if the people who want to build a center were to simply say, we are dedicating this center to all the Muslims who were killed on 9/11. I haven't heard anybody talk about that, but we've all forgotten there were a lot of Muslims killed on 9/11. And if they were to do that, they would be sending several important signals. They would be saying, not all Muslims are terrorists, most of us are far from it. We died too, we share your pain, we're not insensitive to it. And we recognize that the Muslims who killed them were murderers. I mean, then it seems to me that a lot of the objections that have been raised against it would just wipe away if they just said, we are dedicating this Islamic center to the memory of the people who were killed on 9/11, who share our faith. And they can give you the names and tell you how many there were, and I think it would surprise most Americans. I think most Americans may still not know that there was a substantial number of Muslims killed on 9/11.
Yeah, that might be true. Well, President Clinton, we're out of time. I wish we had more, but really appreciate you answering these questions, and we'd love to do it again sometime.
I like it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.